Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Strategic Conversations program. These series of talks, which were suspended due to COVID, are back and they are now virtual. Strategic Conversations features subject matter experts from one of our groups who can expound on their area of expertise. You may submit questions during the presentation. The presentation will be recorded and posted to ip&o's YouTube channel. Today, Jenn, Stuart, and Leigh Kimber will talk about the enhanced wayfinding maps that make navigating Rutgers a breeze. Welcome, Jenn and Leigh.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to briefly talk about what started this initiative. We had always distributed paper maps as part of the university distribution for parking, for visitors, and inevitably paper maps are out of date as soon as they're printed with the way the university grows and expands. So in looking at what other universities were doing in 2017, my area was tasked with creating an online campus map, not only as a resource for members of the university community, but also for the many visitors we receive, as well as prospective students. 2018. And we worked on this in combination with using our existing GIS data. The existing GIS data coordinates, and I'll let Leigh talk a little bit more about GIS and what GIS is, but allows this information to be very up to date because it connects with other systems we have within the university, such as Archibus, to make sure that information is always up to date and reliable. And it creates, the online campus map created an environment for visitors and for students and other university users that's very interactive, that people can search and look throughout the map to find information they're looking for, get directions, and a lot of other things that just wasn't possible with a paper map. So I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Leigh, but I do want to say that, this has been a several year effort, which we've expanded. We've engaged a lot of members throughout the university community, a lot of stakeholders throughout the university that provided us tremendous input as far as how the online campus map would look, as well as where we could potentially be going in the future, what kind of tools and uses it could be integrated into for the future to help improve that student experience as well as university user experience. So we're excited to continue to improve and expand it. In my area, I would tell them all the time, but they've done such great work to do so much work that's been so well received. So it makes me proud every day to see how we keep on evolving this online tool. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Leigh, and she can talk a little bit through our history and where we're at now.
Thanks, Jenn. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up? Yep, okay, great. So Jenn asked me to give a little bit of just an intro or a definition of what GIS is. GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems or Geographic Information Science. What our area does is we create and maintain geospatial data that represents the university's massive physical footprint throughout the state. So geospatial meaning that it's tied to a location, you can put it on a map. So that includes, our land, our property boundaries, buildings, parking, trees, benches, walls, lights, utilities now. So it's really expansive. There's a really long list of all the things that we maintain and things that we'd like to create in the future in terms of GIS data. As Jenn mentioned, the initial charge, which started in 2017, went live in 2018, was to create a reimagined enterprise-wide campus map that would be available online, would be available on mobile devices, and that would be updated basically in real time. So replacing those printed maps that Jenn mentioned are outdated as soon as they're distributed. It has both a public-facing application, so anyone, including visitors or people who aren't affiliated with the university, can see any of our basic information about wayfinding. And then there's also a secure internal facing portion of the map, which is accessed by NetID and is used for operations staff. And right now that part of the map shows utilities information and real estate information. Once the first sort of iteration of the map went live, we immediately started on enhancements to the map to add our off-campus facilities, so all of our extension facilities, research facilities that aren't on one of the 3 contiguous campuses, to integrate the map with Translock, which is the software that's used by transportation services to manage our bus routes, so that you could see that data updated in real time, and also to create web accessibility features, so to bring the map application in line with the university's web accessibility guidelines, so that those who are visually impaired can still use different keyboard navigation techniques to be able to read and interpret the map. And then at the beginning of 2019, we started on the 2020 enhancements, which actually didn't go live until the beginning of 2021. This was a really massive effort, and the one that I'm going to be focusing on today, because it's the most recent to have gone live, which was to take all of the utilities information that was historically maintained in CAD, convert it to GIS, which was a gargantuan effort, and then by doing so, making that information available in a really user-friendly way on the campus map. So you're going to see a lot of detail about how that works today and new functions on the map that allow you to interact with that data. We also added unique symbology, so you can see, you know, what's a manhole, what's a hydrant, what's a valve, and a couple of new interesting base map features that just add a little more context to the campus. And then I'll also talk about briefly just the enhancements that we have going on right now that are going to go live in the next month or so. This is something that none of you will be able to see on the map, but it's sort of something happening behind the scenes that syncs our data to another platform, so that if one platform where the data is hosted goes down, you won't see any service interruption to the map. So it's great for us. You won't see any difference, but just know that that's going on as well. I'm going to go over these slides really quickly, just because this basically is an outline of what I'm going to show you in a live demonstration of the map in a minute. But like I said, most of the enhancements that we made in the last year or two are to utilities. So most of that new functionality will only be seen by people who have access to the back end of the map. But there are a few things that anybody can see that are pretty cool. So one of the things that we added was aerial imagery, which is just higher resolution imagery of the campus, higher resolution than Google's basic satellite imagery. So you'll see that as an option you can toggle on and off. We also added some sort of unique base map options. So you can now see in the background, you can see trees, lights, benches, bus shelters, fences, and walls. And we modified that symbology so that depending on whether you have satellite imagery or Google base map imagery on, you can see it symbolized in different ways. And you'll also be able to see that we created unique symbology so that the building footprints, when satellite imagery or our aerial imagery is turned on, basically that becomes transparent, so you can actually see the detail of the roof of a building, which was something that you weren't able to see before and that we had a lot of requests for, because I think being able to see that detail is important for operations and for planning and design. And then getting to the internal facing map enhancements. So this is something that if you haven't given us your NetID in order to get access to this secure internal facing portion of the map, you won't be able to see. And I did include a little note at the bottom here that if you need access for your job, if you have a sort of a business need to see this information, utilities or real estate, you can email us at gisservices@ipo.rutgers.edu and just copy your supervisor and we can get you access to that. But some of the enhancements that you'll see demonstrated today are that you can turn on and off individual systems. So you can turn on just stormwater or just water or any combination of the above. We have a simplified networks option where you can see all utilities that are in one area just with one click. You'll see unique symbology and legends to tell you what everything is. I'll show you how you can click on utility features so you can find out a lot of detailed information about something like a hydrant or a manhole. And then lastly, some search functions that make it easy to, you know, if you have an AIM asset number or you have a CAD ID number and you want to find a certain feature based on that ID number, you can search for it. So I think I'm going to pause there. I'm just going to exit the presentation And I'll go to the map and just move my window out of the way. Okay. So this is what you would see, same as always, if you go to maps.rutgers.edu, this is sort of the landing page for the campus map. Just check, I'm not logged in right now. So I'm just going to show you some of the public facing features. I'll start with Newark. This is the same as always. You always would be defaulted to this Google base map sort of graphic background. And you always have the option to toggle between that and Google's satellite imagery. So I'll just zoom into a certain part of campus so you can see what that looks like. I'm gonna go looking for this area here. You can kind of start to see some of those benches and lights that are showing up there. But what you didn't have before in this new button underneath the roadmap and satellite part is the button to turn on the Rutgers imagery, which was collected in 2019. It's super high resolution. I think it's like 1 pixel is equal to 3 inches. So the map doesn't even really do it justice. If you had this in a software where you could just zoom in much further, you'd see exactly how crisp it is. And we can certainly provide that to people. I'll give you that option at the end of the presentation. But you can see that option is here. So you can switch back and forth between that. And then you can see that these icons are shown for benches, trees, lights are in yellow there throughout this part of Newark campus. And yeah, you can just change this to kind of suit your needs depending on what you need to see. I'll note that this is just background features. You can't click on these and get information about those. That would be really cool. Maybe something we'd incorporate in the future, but right now they're just for background. And they're intended to be kind of minimal in terms of symbology. They're not meant to jump out at you. They're just for additional context. Then I'll also just point out that roof detail. So if you turn on that, the aerial imagery, the gray box that represents the building outline is gone, and now you can actually see exactly what's on the roof. So if you need that for your job, that's pretty helpful. I'm gonna back out to New Brunswick, and then I'll go through some of the utility features. So as I mentioned, you have to access this by logging in at the top right corner. There's a login button. It'll redirect you to NetID login. I'll get that right on the first try. And you'll be logged in. At this extent, it doesn't look any different, but when I zoom in, you'll be able to see the difference. I also just want to note that it didn't pop up for me because I'm not logging in for the first time, but if it is your first time logging in, we have this feature where a disclaimer will pop up, basically just telling you this data is for reference only. It's not meant to be used as a basis for markouts. You need to field verify it. And then there's an email address if you see anything that looks like an error or an inconsistency that you want to provide feedback on. And that's always available in the bottom panel too here if you need to find that again. So I'll zoom into Bush, and then you'll see in this panel some more detail showed up, including utilities and real estate. So you wouldn't see these 2 buttons if you were not logged in. I'm going to expand the utilities panel, and then I'll turn on, like I said, you can turn on individual systems or all of them or this all utilities version. Right now, I'll just turn on water and stormwater. You can see both of those overlaid together. I also want to point out that if it's great that we have all this unique symbology. You can probably guess that this is a hydrant. Some of the other symbols might not be as intuitive. We have a legend on the right-hand side that you can open up, and it'll show you exactly what every symbol is for that system. And it'll show you automatically whichever system you have toggled on over here. So I have water and stormwater toggled on right now. You can see those 2, and you can expand or close them. So those legends are here just for reference. I think as you use it more, you'll kind of learn what the symbols are. I also want to show you this all utilities network. So this is kind of similar to what the map looked like before. It's basically just a simplified view showing points and lines. So if you were, doing some planning or some initial feasibility of maybe constructing a building or doing work in a certain area, and you don't really care about the detail, you just want to know what's in the way. This is a great way to do that. You can just flip this one toggle on and you can see, okay, this area is very clear. Over here we have, sort of a tangled web of utilities that might be a little more complicated. So that's a nice feature and something that the majority of our users, when we did outreach for this effort, said that that would be their primary use of the utilities part of the map. So it's good that we have that there. Let's go back to the water and stormwater examples. I'm going to just close up the legend just to make a little more space. So if you want to click on a feature, you're able to do that. So you can click on any feature here. It'll search for that feature. And then it'll open up what we call an info drawer, basically just giving you all the information that we have available about that feature. So you can see the ID number, you can see its status, you can see what type of inlet it is, whether it's a drop inlet, which means it's flush to the ground, versus a catch basin, which is attached to a curb. You might be able to see grate elevation, diameters, number of outlets, etc. And we also have the AIM asset number. I will just note one caveat. You can obviously tell that a lot of these attributes are blank. That's not an error. When we converted the data from CAD to GIS, we basically converted what was available in CAD already. During that exercise, we created a lot of fields where we might want to populate information if we collected it in the future. But it's basically, we didn't develop any new data. We didn't go out and collect information about this stuff. We were just converting it, what we had from CAD. So if you see something that's blank or something that exists for one inlet or not for another, that's not an error. It's what data was available at the time. It's something that we'd like to further develop in the future. You can also note that there's an arrow here. So if you click on something like this point, but really you meant to click on this line, it'll kind of have this tolerance. So it'll bring up information about anything that's kind of within that vicinity. So you can kind of just toggle through, and now it's highlighting that pipe and find out some information about that pipe. There are additional little connecting lines there, and it'll even bring in, if you actually meant to click on Werblin instead of that inlet, it'll bring that up as well. Just to give another example, we could click on a hydrant, same idea. You might see information like the ID number, the asset number, the date it was manufactured, maybe the flow rate, the manufacturer. There's a lot of information if you start exploring through here. And then I also want to point out the search feature. We've always had a search bar here, but this one here is meant mainly to search for buildings, parking lots, addresses, things like that. There's a new little wrench icon here, which is meant just for utilities information. So if you click on this, it'll open up a new search function where you can search by the AIM asset number, the CAD ID number, or what's called an RCMS ID. This probably won't mean anything to most of the people on this webinar today, but this is something that OIT uses for their communications information. And so that's there to be able to be searched as well. So I'm just going to find a number that I was going to search just to show you how it works. So we're going to look for an inlet on Cook Douglas, and I just happen to have the CAD ID here. And so it'll bring up any, I only had part of the ID number. The true ID number is BUST inlet 0523. But if you type a part of it or you only know part of it, it'll bring up anything that matches those criteria. Happens to be that this is the one I'm looking for, so I'm going to click on this. And then the map will zoom directly to that location. So now we're on, oh, I'm sorry, I have a Bush one instead of Cook Douglas, but same idea. It'll zoom to that location. So now we're at Bartholomew Road. It will open up the info drawer for that inlet, and it'll also obviously toggle on that system if it wasn't toggled on already. You can search by the ID number, and then also you can search by the AIM asset number. So this is just a hydrant. Click on that, and it'll bring you right to that hydrant. The other cool thing I'll just show that inlet again is that as you're searching, if you don't know what you're looking for, we have these icons that'll show you, this feature is associated with stormwater, this one's associated with water. So it kind of helps you quickly identify what it is you're looking for if you know you're looking for one or the other. You may have also noticed that if you zoom in far enough, you'll see ID numbers displayed on the map, as well as for some of the line features, if the information is available, it'll show the diameter of that line, which can be a helpful quick reference as you're just panning around the map. It only shows up to the extent that it's available. So if that information wasn't available for this stormwater line, for example, you wouldn't see it. And then you could see how, water is blue, which is pretty intuitive. There are some unique symbology for lines, like for example, any red line that you see in the water system is a fire service, whereas blue is potable or domestic water. You'll also see, like, if you turn on something like heating and cooling or electric, there are lots of different types of service within that system. So that's where the legend really comes in handy if you want to see what the red versus the pink versus the blue are. We try to make it as intuitive as possible. So the dark red is high temp hot water, the blue is chilled water, orange is medium temp. But that can be pretty helpful as well. I know I'm doing a demonstration on New Brunswick. This information is available to the extent that we had it in CAD for Camden and Newark as well. So I'll just show you Camden really quickly. And then I'll also note that in both Camden and Newark, the sewer systems are combined, so they include both sanitary and stormwater. So if you do what I just did and you turned on stormwater and nothing pops up, that's by design. You just want to turn on the sewer system, which shows both sanitary and stormwater. And then if you click on a feature, you'll see what system it's associated with. You can see, like, I just clicked on an inlet, which is part of the combined sewer system. There's an attribute here called is stormwater, and it says yes. That means this is part of the stormwater system. Makes sense because it's an inlet, it's collecting rainwater. So that's all I had for the demonstration. Jen, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add or if you felt like we covered everything, any features that you were hoping to see.
So I think we're always looking for ideas and feedback on how we can improve the experience on the campus map and what features we can add in the future. So, if any of you have used the campus map or use the campus map in the future, feel free to shoot us an email or let us know now if you have certain ideas of how we can improve the campus map. As I mentioned before, we had a steering committee that we've engaged a couple times with stakeholders throughout the university that I think have provided some really valuable feedback and options on how we can expand this in the future. So we're looking into those and evaluating them. We have some efforts going on right now that I think, Leanne, if you want to talk about a little bit more, would be helpful. But I think just things as far as I think I'll give it, for instance, I think one that comes up a lot is transportation information. And connecting with transportation services, parking system to provide some real-time information on who can park in what lots at what time. We don't know if that can be done, but it's on our list to potentially do because it would provide a great user experience and a lot of information to those who are going on the website, who may be visitors, who may not be familiar with the university. So with that, I'll turn it back to Leanne. You can talk about some of the things that we're doing now.
So I mentioned at the beginning the 2021 enhancements, which are sort of behind the scenes stuff that you won't see, but will improve the reliability of the map and the way it functions. That's going to deploy in the next month or so. Kind of in tandem with that, we're kicking off a new project. As we were doing initial outreach, as we finalized the utilities project, we got a lot of requests like, hey, I know this information is now in GIS, but we still need to be able to receive it in CAD format. How can we do that? We did some testing on our own and determined that to do it manually is a gargantuan effort for our team. So we're going to engage ip&o, which is the consultant who built the map and who maintains the map for us, to develop basically a custom tool that will allow us to take utilities and non-utility information from GIS, anything that you need in CAD, to convert it from GIS to CAD, not exactly at the click of a button, but with a few clicks as opposed to a week or 2 weeks worth of effort. So that'll be great. I think we'll have that up according to the schedule in the next 4 months or so. So hopefully in the new year, that'll be ready to go. And then we have been working on a strategic plan, which entails, engaging with a lot of stakeholders throughout the university, whether it's an ip&o or beyond ip&o, to understand, how we can set up our databases better serve them and to be in a position to respond more nimbly to their requests. The GIS to CAD conversion tool is a great example of that, but we've gotten a lot of great information from initial outreach about, ways the data could be standardized, data that we might not maintain right now that it would be good to have a database for, ways that we could enhance the campus map. And so we're collecting that information. We're working on developing priority lists and sort of implementing some of those things. But Liz, you're, I know you wanted to do questions, so I feel like this is a good transition actually. If there are questions or suggestions or feedback on the map that people have, that could definitely roll up into that priority list for the strategic plan. So we could talk about that now.
Okay, if anybody would like to pose questions, you may do so at this time. I don't see any. I'll give you a minute or so, and if not, you can certainly reach Leigh and Jenn at the emails that they've given you in today's presentation.
Yeah, so while we're waiting, if anybody does have questions, I'll just note that we have a general email address that we use for questions about the map, feedback on the map, requests for information. It's gisservices@ipo.rutgers.edu. It's great to use that instead of emailing one of us individually, because that way it goes to everyone on our team, and whoever's available can respond to it. So you'll get a quicker response that way. If you need access to the internal facing portion of the map, if you try to log in with your net ID and it doesn't work, probably because you don't have access. Doesn't mean that you can't have access. Just email us at that address, let us know why you need it, and copy your supervisor, and we can add you to that. The only piece of information we need from you is your net ID, and that takes effect pretty instantly. And then I'll just note that there's also, oh, go ahead, Liz.
No, that's okay. I don't see any questions, but I do see a couple of people mentioning that they find this very informative, which is great. It truly is.
Great. It's great to just go on to the map and play around with it a little bit, but if you can't find certain features or you need help navigating it, you can always reach out. Happy to have one of our team jump on a screen share and show people how to use it. And I'll note that there's
I don't see any questions, but again, a couple of kudos in there, and certainly well deserved. I think this is a great project and a very helpful one for the university. So I'd like to thank Leigh and Jenn for presenting today, and hopefully you'll be in touch with them and provide them with any feedback that you'd like to see on these maps. And thank you for joining us today. Take care, everybody.